My golden child sister hated me and tried to literally kill me, and our parents still saw nothing wrong with it. It's only years later when she did the unthinkable that they saw her for who she really was and severely punished her. She's now begging me to reconcile, but I know her true motives, and I'm saying no. My older sister Megan always had this extreme hatred towards me. I was the outgoing type, the type to make an entire room laugh at a dumb joke. Meanwhile, she was a bookworm, the type to get good grades without even trying. And as you've probably guessed by now, she was my parents' golden child, and I was not, especially to my dad. She was his precious princess. He'd prepare her favorite meals, handle her laundry, and constantly ask me to help with her assignments. I was expected to be her personal assistant just because we're family, but I never received the same treatment in return. So I guess I share some blame for how she turned out, since I constantly helped her without expecting anything back. But the problems only started when she began tormenting me and ridiculing me for our differences. She'd mock me for being chubbier than her, and when I didn't cry as much as she'd hoped for, she resorted to other methods. It wasn't long before she was sneaking into my room, going through my phone and reporting to my dad about my messages with friends. When I confronted her and complained to our parents about my privacy being violated, they'd just chuckle and say it was harmless. I didn't even feel like I had a home anymore, because it never got better, only worse. Soon she started hiding my sports equipment before games and putting disgusting stuff in my lunch. But thankfully, when she mixed crushed eggshells into my sandwich, I noticed before biting into it. When I told Dad, he dismissed it as sisters bonding. And in school, she noticed a group of girls bullying me. That time, I was actually hoping she would make fun of me for it in front of our parents, so they'd know about my bullying. But instead, she joined forces with them. Together, they'd call me a fat loser, or dumb jock, as well as encourage them to spread rumors, saying I was just a massive disappointment. At that point, I struggled to believe life was worth living. And during another fight over something so trivial I can't even remember, she told me I should just end my life, that every problem in her life is because of me. That one cut deep. Hearing my own sister basically wish me dead was devastating. Since Mom worked late shifts and Dad seemed indifferent, he even scolded me once, claiming I must have provoked her. Things just kept getting worse. In my sophomore year, there was this shocking incident where Megan tried putting bleach in my shampoo bottle, and she put so much that, if it wasn't for the smell, I wouldn't have noticed and would end up in hospital. And guess what my dad said about it? He defended her, said she was just pranking me. Like, hello. Thankfully, my mom eventually took my side and pointed out how serious this was. She even threatened to involve the police if Megan didn't stop. This was a true wake-up call for my sister since she'd never faced consequences before. She was too shocked to even do her usual manipulation tricks of crying or screaming. Later, Mom came to talk to me privately. Mom admitted she'd waited for years hoping Megan would grow out of it, but was slowly realizing Megan was becoming a truly nasty person. She stroked my hair as I cried and apologized for not making my home feel like, well, my home. I confessed everything Megan had done over the years and mentioned the bullying at school. My mom's face turned white and she didn't say anything, just hugged me super tight. The next day, she spoke with the principal to ensure those girls would face serious consequences if they continued. That evening, Mom signed me up for kickboxing classes at a local gym, telling me I needed to learn to stand up for myself against the bullies in my life. I'll admit, a sporty but insecure girl like me trying to learn self-defense probably seemed funny, but I was dedicated. Until one day, when Megan was up to her usual tricks. Megan sneaked into my room and grabbed it while I was showering. I caught her just as she was about to head out with her friends. She took the allowance I'd earned from babysitting the neighbor's kids. I'd been saving up for weeks. I demanded she return my money, but Megan just laughed, saying all I could do was cry to Mommy. Usually, I would just feel sad, or cry, but something in me snapped. Anger boiled my blood. I slapped her across the face. She was stunned, stumbled backward, and I grabbed my money from her purse before shoving her away. Megan started wailing dramatically, which was actually pretty hilarious. But Dad rushed out to comfort her and find out what happened. When he learned I'd hit her, he was shocked and lectured me about being a better role model, while Megan smirked watching me get scolded. Dad also complained to Mom about my behavior when she got home, saying I needed to be disciplined. Mom calmly asked us both to explain what happened. I told her how Megan had stolen the money I'd worked hard for, while Megan tried justifying it by saying she needed it for concert tickets, and that as her sister, I should help her out. Mom told Megan she was lucky I only slapped her for stealing because anyone else might have pressed charges. She continued, saying Megan had no right to take others' belongings without permission. Megan hated that response and threw a tantrum, probably hoping Dad would back her up, but Mom remained firm. When Megan realized she wasn't going to get sympathy for being slapped, she screamed how much she hated me and locked herself in her room. After that incident, Megan started avoiding me. She finally understood she couldn't push me around anymore, and even Dad had stopped enabling her behavior. For the first time in forever, I felt like we were on equal footing. Though she couldn't physically hurt me anymore, she still threw verbal jabs when our parents weren't around. Her attitude only worsened with time. She grew more bitter and resentful each year. If I asked her something, she'd ignore me completely and walk away, muttering airhead or trash under her breath. If she needed to tell me something, she'd relay the message through Dad instead of speaking to me directly. When I questioned why Megan couldn't just talk to me, he'd urge me to be more understanding. I couldn't tell if it was just teenage angst or genuine hatred. Eventually, dealing with her constant hostility became unbearable, and I desperately wanted to move out. I repeatedly asked Dad to help us have a sit-down conversation to resolve our issues, but he always refused, saying he didn't want to get involved. When I asked his opinion on why Megan treated me this way, he'd change the subject. Finally, I left for college with a volleyball scholarship. Mom threw a party for me, and even Dad seemed proud. Megan, however, remained cold and distant, barely acknowledging my achievement. The day I left for college was a mix of excitement for my future and relief to escape that toxic household. Those first few months at college were liberating. I made amazing friends, loved my classes, and started building a life away from the shadow of my childhood. The constant dread of Megan's verbal attacks lifted, giving me this incredible sense of freedom. During junior year, I met my husband Tyler at a volleyball tournament through mutual friends, and we hit it off immediately. Coming from a traditional family, having kids before marriage wasn't really an option. But when we found out I was pregnant in our senior year, we decided to get married right after graduation. Our wedding was small but perfect. Our family seemed happy for us, and everything felt right. Back then, I truly believed Tyler was my soulmate. I'd always wanted a faithful relationship, one person to build a life with. Despite getting attention from other guys over the years, I never considered anything because I was genuinely happy in my marriage. Tyler was my dream guy, and I never wanted to hurt him. But later, I discovered he cheated twice during our marriage, once with a coworker in an on and off affair lasting nearly 2 years, and another time with a college fling during a business trip. Some might call me naive, and looking back, I can't completely disagree. Each time we separated temporarily, I eventually chose to forgive him. I didn't want our daughter growing up in a broken home and believed we could work through these issues. The affair with his coworker happened when we were still young, and I chalked it up to immaturity and poor judgment. For a while, things seemed to improve. Though I could never fully trust him again, I tried setting aside my doubts, knowing that forgiveness meant genuinely attempting to start fresh. It had been 3 years since his last betrayal, and I felt confident in my decision to give our marriage another chance. Tyler seemed changed, and we were truly happy, planning our future together. Then, 4 months ago, my world imploded when Tyler revealed he'd been having another long-term affair and suggested our daughter might not even be mine. His words hit me like a freight train. I felt shock, betrayal, and disbelief all at once. I could barely process what he was saying. In a daze, I managed to ask why he kept such a massive secret and how he could do something so devastating. His reaction was cold and detached, like he didn't even care about the pain he was causing. His vague answers left me with more questions than clarity. It was surreal and crushing, facing this shattered trust and uncertainty about my own family. I kept pressing Tyler for the truth because I deserved to know who really fathered the child I'd been raising since birth. Finally, he admitted it was Megan. My jaw dropped in shock as I asked what the hell he meant. He explained that he and Megan had become friendly when I introduced him to my family, and he stayed with us during spring break our senior year. Megan, typically frosty toward me, was warm and friendly with him, which made me happy because I didn't want Tyler feeling unwelcome. Tyler wanted my family's approval, so he spent lots of time with my dad whenever possible. He noticed the tension between Megan and me and asked about it. I opened up about our strained relationship and explained we might never fix things because of her unresolved hostility. Tyler understood but started including Megan in our plans, hoping it would help us reconnect. Whenever we planned dinner out, he invited Megan, and we'd eat wherever she preferred. During this time, Megan and I exchanged a few civil words, which was progress compared to her usual silent treatment. I remember Tyler and Megan hanging out playing video games together, but I didn't think much of it. Tyler told me that one night, Megan confided in him about her struggles with dating. Feeling vulnerable, she developed a friendship with him. He mentioned she would casually flirt when I wasn't around, and eventually, things escalated before he realized what was happening. The image of my husband and sister together made me physically ill. Tyler confessed he felt guilty afterward and distanced himself, which matched his sudden food poisoning excuse to skip our family dinner that weekend. Though I tried convincing him to join us, he insisted on staying at his dorm. When we reunited after spring break, he seemed normal, so I didn't question anything. 3 weeks later, we discovered I was pregnant. Tyler admitted he didn't know if the child was his or Megan's, and with no way to be sure then, he chose to stay with me, knowing I was the more stable option. That's why we rushed into marriage. My entire world collapsed. The daughter I adored might not even be mine biologically. I asked Tyler if he'd been sleeping with Megan recently, and he slowly nodded. He revealed they'd always maintained contact because their connection was undeniable. They'd sneak off to hotels, lying about working late. He admitted that most of his guys' trips were actually weekends with her. I asked why he married me if he wanted my sister, and Tyler said he didn't want to be the one to end our marriage. He saw me as a wonderful mother to our daughter, and decided to stay. In his words, he made a mistake and couldn't figure out how to stop. I told Tyler I appreciated his honesty, but that I was packing my things and leaving. He started crying, begging forgiveness, expecting me to scream and rage. Instead, I calmly gathered my essentials. Tyler insisted that if I loved him, I should fight for our relationship, and that every marriage has problems. When he realized I wasn't budging, he switched tactics, saying our daughter would suffer from a divorce, and that children need intact homes. I reminded him I might not even be her biological parent, which made him cry harder and accuse me of being heartless. It seemed like he genuinely believed nothing could make me walk away. Maybe that was partly my fault for forgiving previous betrayals. While I did love him, it felt more like an attachment based on thinking we had a child together, and our history since college. Tyler kept insisting we could fix things, but I couldn't believe him anymore, and had no patience left. Trust was destroyed, and his words rang hollow. Even if I forgave him, I could never forget he slept with my sister. I've always believed in second chances because nobody's perfect, but this crossed every possible line. I left him sobbing on our porch and checked into a hotel. The next day, I went straight to my parents' house and revealed everything about Tyler's affair with Megan, explaining how they'd been secretly seeing each other for years. The horror on their faces was unmistakable. True to form, my dad initially tried defending Megan, insisting his little girl would never do such a thing to her own sister. sister. Determined to expose the truth, I asked my parents to stay quiet while I called Megan in front of them. I instructed them not to speak so I could catch Megan off guard, making her think we were talking privately. When Megan answered, I confronted her about the affair. At first, she vehemently denied everything, refusing any responsibility. But when I mentioned that Tyler had confessed everything, she started blaming him, calling him weak and pathetic. She claimed it wasn't her fault if men were attracted to her, and that she was the prettier sister anyway. I firmly told her I was going to tell everyone what she'd done. When Megan laughed, saying nobody would believe me because she was the favorite child, I scoffed at her arrogance and thanked her for confirming everything, letting her know our parents had heard every word. Megan went silent, then started stammering, trying to explain herself and salvage her image. My father, still in shock, demanded an explanation from Megan. She stumbled through weak excuses, blaming everyone but herself, and desperately trying to shift responsibility to Tyler. I could see my dad, who had once shielded his precious daughter from all consequences, now experiencing a mix of heartbreak and fury. In that charged moment, I felt a strange vindication. For years, I'd endured Megan's cruelty. Now the truth was exposed, and our roles were reversed. As Megan's excuses faltered, my mother, usually reserved in her reactions, couldn't hide her disappointment. She asked for the phone and began speaking to Megan. Megan, Mom started, her voice heavy with disappointment. What you've done isn't just betraying your sister, but betraying this entire family. You slept with your sister's husband and continued the affair even after they were married. Your actions have serious consequences and have permanently destroyed the trust we had in you. We raised both of you to value family, loyalty, and respect. What you've shown today goes against everything we tried to teach you. She paused, letting her words sink in. Your disregard for your sister's feelings and complete lack of respect for her marriage is inexcusable. You've not only hurt her but torn apart what bonds our family had left. Your father and I share responsibility for what you've become, but we won't tolerate this behavior anymore. From today, you're cut off from the trust fund I established for you. You'll need to figure out how to pay your graduate school tuition yourself. I'm also stopping payments on your apartment. Do you think sleeping with married men makes you sophisticated? Let's see how you manage without my financial support. Throughout this, I remained composed. Though I initially wanted to scream at Megan, watching my mom finally hold her accountable was ultimate validation. I had exposed her true nature, and clearly she'd underestimated the consequences. My father, despite Megan's continued protests, attempted to justify her actions, but my mom firmly ended the call, shutting down Megan's excuses. Afterward, my dad approached and hugged me. It had been forever since we shared such a moment, but in that embrace was an unspoken apology and support amid our family crisis. He apologized for not believing me all these years. My teenage self could never have imagined this moment, being vindicated and embraced by my father. Following this, my mom helped me find an excellent divorce attorney. Tyler and his lawyer tried playing dirty, asking for joint custody despite everything, but his affair worked strongly in my favor. We also completed a paternity test, confirming that Megan was indeed my daughter's biological mother. That news hurt even worse than discovering Tyler's cheating. I was furious that the daughter I'd loved and raised wasn't biologically mine. Still, I stayed strong. Tyler begged me to maintain a relationship with our daughter, arguing she shouldn't suffer for the situation, but I couldn't handle seeing her. She reminded me too much of Megan, and I hated that feeling. After finalizing my divorce, I felt incredibly liberated moving into my own apartment. It was strange living alone since I'd married young and never experienced true independence. However, my naturally adaptable nature helped me quickly adjust to this new lifestyle, and I genuinely enjoyed it. 3 weeks ago, my mom called saying she was revising her will because she didn't want to leave anything to Megan. Mom is incredibly stubborn, and once she decided to cut Megan out of her life, that was it. Megan tried reaching our parents repeatedly and even showed up at their house, pleading for forgiveness, but they refused to let her in. Even my dad, who typically caved to Megan's manipulation, seemed finished with her, though it must have been hardest for him. Megan never texted me to apologize, showing she didn't regret her actions. She was just upset about losing our parents' support. Mom told me she planned to leave everything to me, ensuring Megan couldn't contest it later. She would leave Megan exactly $10. I was stunned because my mom had built a successful business throughout her life. Between her company, properties, investments, and insurance policies, the total came to nearly $2.5 million. The only condition was that if Mom passed before Dad, he would continue living in their house, though ownership would transfer to me. I had no issue with this arrangement, as I wanted to care for Dad in his later years. Somehow, Megan discovered this development, and unable to reach our parents, called me yesterday attempting reconciliation. She explained she was struggling with grad school expenses, and that after Tyler learned he was the biological father, he'd been hounding her for childcare help. She claimed she had no money, and was searching for part-time work, but couldn't find anything suitable. She begged me to mediate with our parents for a fresh start, saying she desperately needed my help. I laughed in her face and told her I was done with her forever. I reminded her she should have considered consequences before sleeping with my husband and becoming pregnant. Megan argued I was being unfair, and that Tyler deserved equal blame, which I agreed with. I reminded her I divorced him, making him her problem now. She shouldn't call me complaining about him or their child since these were the results of her own actions. Megan started raising her voice, but I cut her off, reminding her she was no longer Daddy's favorite, but the family disgrace who slept with her sister's husband. At that point, Megan broke down crying, telling me how everyone, including our extended family and friends, had turned against her. While this was true, it wasn't my concern anymore. I told her we were finished, and that she should never contact me again since I no longer considered her my sister. Since then, I've replayed our conversation repeatedly. Despite my hatred for my sister, I'd never heard her cry like that, at least not since we were children. I won't lie, it did affect me seeing her so desperate. So I guess I'm here asking if I should talk to our parents about her, or would I be the asshole if I don't? Update. Hi everyone. Many of you have have been asking why I no longer have contact with my daughter Emma, and some have called me heartless. I need to explain that I'm not comfortable raising a child who isn't biologically mine under these circumstances. This isn't like adopting or being a step-parent. I was led to believe Emma was my daughter, only to discover she's actually my sister's biological child. This revelation devastated me, and I grieved for weeks. The main reason I avoid contact with Emma is that I don't want Tyler or Megan in my life anymore. If I maintain a relationship with their child, they'll find ways to stay connected to me, and I need space. You might think I'm selfish, but I can't see her right now, at least not for the foreseeable future. I've started therapy to work through these feelings, so we'll see how that goes.